My GF cheated on me, so I fed her fake chemistry information and almost made her fail chemistry. Now she's paying me to tutor her. My family immigrated America in the 1880s and settled in Nebraska. We were farmers for the first 80 years or so, but back in the 1960s my great-grandma decided she was going to sell the entire farm before she died and simply give her sons 1/3 of the money for inheritance. When she passed, she had 3 sons. In 1969 my great-grandma passed, and her 3 sons inherited the money she had earned from selling the farm. My grandpa decided he would basically let that money sit until after he retired from the military. In 1971 he deployed to Vietnam for his second and final deployment. At the end of his deployment, he returned to Nebraska and retired after 22 years in the service. Now he had an old Chevy truck at the time and was in the process of building a concrete business with the money he had gotten from his inheritance. Well, during this time, his truck engine blew up. My grandpa was busy at the time and he didn't want to fool with the truck cause he was busy. So he bought himself the engine he wanted to replace it with, which was an upgrade, and he went down to the only garage in town and asked them if they'd be willing to put the engine in the truck. They agreed on a price and told him to come back in a week or so. A week later my grandpa comes back and picks up the truck. He admits he felt like a fool for not double-checking the work, but assumed since this was the son of his friend that the son would do right by him. This was a small town. Well, my grandpa opens up the concrete business, and he's busy, and it comes time for his first oil change. This is about 4 months after he got the truck back. He's doing the oil change and he notices that the engine he bought isn't the engine in his truck. It's a smaller engine. This obviously angers him off to high heaven, as my grandma liked to say. So he storms on down to the garage and talks to shop. Earl was the owner. Earl comes out and denies any wrongdoing. Says he did as he was told, and it shouldn't have taken him 4 months to bring the issue up. My grandpa tells Earl he needs to do what's right. Earl refuses. It's important to note, this is a small town. Written contracts, and so forth really isn't a thing. Your worth is your word. My grandpa tells Earl he's going to get him for this. Earl laughs and tells him to leave his shop. My grandpa goes down to the county and requests the record for who owns that gas station. Turns out it's an old family friend named Harold. My grandpa stops by Harold's house and starts inquiring about the business deal Harold has with Earl. Harold says well, Earl rents the gas station/garage from him. My grandpa asks Harold how everything is going, and Harold confides that Earl hasn't paid his rent in 2 months. My grandpa asks, do you have a written lease with Earl? To which Harold goes, nah, I sure don't. My grandpa then asks, what if I bought the gas station/garage from you? Harold isn't completely on board with the idea, but my grandpa makes a strong point. Earl isn't paying his rent, Harold doesn't seem like he has much interest in being a landlord anymore, and my grandpa has the cash to buy the place outright. Harold, sensing something is up, asks my grandpa, did Earl do something to you? You seem awfully interested in this garage, aren't you busy with that concrete business of yours? And my grandpa fills Harold in on the story. My grandpa also mentions that he has a son, my father, who needs something to do, and he'd be happy to buy the whole building from Harold for a fair price, and what happens after that is his business. Also, it's important to note, when Harold decided to rent this business to Earl, in that deal went all the equipment and tools that Harold had acquired over the years, so those belonged to the building. Harold and my grandpa came to a number that they both agreed on. A few days later my grandpa paid Harold in cash, in full for the business. The paperwork is done and my grandpa is now the proud owner of a gas station and mechanics shop. Now my grandpa senses that Earl isn't going to be too pleased when my grandpa fires Earl, so for extra good measure my grandpa calls up the local sheriff, who is a high school friend, and asks the sheriff to come with him to break the news to Earl. So my grandpa and the sheriff go down to Earl's now former business, and they walk in, and before my grandpa can even say hello, Earl says, "Now I told you, I didn't cheat you." My grandpa smiles and says, "I'm not here about my truck, I'm here to fire you." Earl, with a look of confusion on his face, asks, "You can't fire me. I own this business." My grandpa shows him the title and says, "I'm now the owner of this building," to which Earl fires back, "But I got a deal with Harold." And the sheriff speaks up, "You do? Do you have a lease?" "Well, no," Earl says, to which the sheriff smiles and says, "In that case, you're going need to take your stuff and leave." Earl is angry, grabs his toolbox and storms out. My grandpa ended up hiring the mechanic that would occasionally work on his trucks at his concrete business. He had my aunt and grandma run the gas station full time, and my dad would work there after school. We owned that garage for 25 years before my grandpa sold it to someone else. So, I, 19 male, and my, now ex-girlfriend, 18 female, have been together for more than a year. We were in the same class during middle school and high school. Now, a 2-year friendship eventually evolved into a relationship. You all know how it is. We were happily together, at least so I thought, since December 2019. I thought everything was great between us the whole time, although recently, about March, I noticed her becoming very distant and barely writing first, dry texting, etc. I asked her multiple times if everything is okay and gave her some space, but it continued for the next few months. I was naturally very upset, as I've been through hell and back together with her when she was going through depression and a really hard time at the end of 2020. It suddenly felt like all this time was wasted and worth nothing. I, as a naive high schooler, truly believed that she was the one. It was serious after all. We matched perfectly together. We spent about 3 full months crying together at night when she was going through a rough time. We had similar plans for the future, similar interests, and it seemed we were meant for each other. My GF, let's call her Caroline, was studying to become a lawyer, so she was mostly into humanities subjects. I, on the other hand, am studying biochem for medical school. I apologize if this is all confusing/different, we live in Europe. She was required to attend at least one science subject to graduate, physics/biology/chemistry/psychology. She always hated these subjects and just took them because they were necessary to graduate. She ended up picking chemistry, as I was an actual and tutored 9 and 10 graders chemistry in my free time, and I always helped her with assignments, etc. It started as helping her before exams and assignments so she could get a good pass grade, and after her rough time warped into me writing half of the assignments for her. In February she started to do everything with me again, though we were online the whole time. Anyways, enough backstory. After noticing Caroline started to get distant and she never properly answered my questions regarding her behavior, I wanted to see how far it would go. For 1 week I didn't invite her, call her, or text her first. In a total of 1 week she called me 3 times. Twice to ask me about her assignment and once telling me how she felt insecure and bad. I'm not a jerk. I helped her out with her school stuff and comforted her when she felt down. Me being the naive love is perfect lovebird, I am chalked it up to her feeling depressed again but feeling embarrassed about it. I continued helping and comforting her for the next month until nothing changed and she never opened up. I was honestly doubting everything by then. Is it me? What am I doing wrong, etc. I tried everything I could. Eventually, I asked her friends if something happened, but they said she was the same as always towards them. I knew something was up, but I didn't know what it was yet. One day when she came over to my place, it was only the second time she did that in March. Usually she came at least twice a week. We were sitting in my room and talking while she was trying out Valorant. After she went to my kitchen to make herself something, I hear a notification from her phone. I'm usually not a snooper, but I had a quick look at her screen that lit up. I wouldn't be able to read the message or who it was anyway. It was a Discord notification. I was very surprised. I knew for a fact that she didn't have it a month ago. Plus, she only plays Minecraft once in a while. She never uses Discord or anything. So, the next morning I did some snooping and sure enough, I found a whole other Instagram account of hers where she branded herself to be an aesthetic gamer girl. Not that there is anything wrong with that. She had never told me anything about this. I couldn't find any of her friends following her on that account either. Sure enough, she had her Discord username in her bio. Curious and, to be honest, jerk me decided it would be a good idea to create a throwaway account and try to text her to see what she was all about. Before you complain to me, I know I was a jerk here. After texting her on my new account, we talked for a bit until she became flirty. We played a few Bed Wars games together, once again on a throwaway account I bought for $1. I kind of broke down and started questioning my sanity. I had been with her all this time and through so much stuff, I couldn't believe she would do this to me. After the sadness came from the anger, I wanted to know how much she took it. I found it hard to believe that she would just casually flirt with guys like this. After setting up my first recon mission plan, I found out more about her until I found out about her supposed boyfriend. At that point I had a huge emotional breakdown and I felt I've wasted so much time helping someone who would betray me like this. From her stories I would later find out they were sleeping with each other for a whole month by now, about when her behavior started to change. At this point I started hatching my revenge plan. I know I would not let her off the hook this easily. I spent 2 weeks pulling all-nighters making sure I had all my work done till the end of the year, until graduation. I spent all my remaining time creating fake chemistry textbook pages so I could make my ProRevenge more believable. All of the information was wrong. I knew I had to give her a taste of her own medicine, betray her like she had me. For the remaining 2 months of the school year, I fed her all this fake information and made sure she got all of her assignments wrong. I knew she wouldn't be able to tell anyone she was copying off me, as our high school had a very strict rule for plagiarism. As much as 3 small cheating attempts on small exams could get you expelled. So, after letting the pot stew for those 2 painful, awful months, I let the stuff hit the fan. As our teacher had to handle an outrageous amount of classes, she always checked our assignments late, often by 2 or 3 months all at once. I knew I could use this fact to my advantage. After she submitted her final assignments that were worth a huge percentage of our final graduation grade, I told her I knew that her shenanigans had been ongoing for 3 entire months by now. I told her how she hurt me and how it will come back to haunt her. I made sure of that. She mostly brushed me off and acted as if I were the villain, as I couldn't just leave her and that she was only friends with that guy. Although I told her something was going to happen, I never told her what it would be. Trust me, she never saw it coming. 1 week later, the end of year results rolled around. When we received our final grades, I was over the moon as I passed with flying colors. On the other hand, her not so much. Due to her final assignments and all quarter 4 work equaling to an F, she called me crying and asked for help. She told me she wouldn't be able to graduate if she wouldn't receive at least a passing grade for this year. She told me our teacher gave her a final chance after telling her how disappointed she was. Caroline has 2 more months at school with extra one-on-one online lessons with our saint teacher. Honestly, props go out to our teacher for giving her another chance. To be honest, I felt really bad for her and her situation, knowing very well if she didn't work her butt off in these 2 months, in a subject she hated, she would have to repeat the last year, without someone constantly helping her with her chem. That compassion quickly went away and I told her I would help her, but only if she apologized and paid me my regular tutoring fees. Caroline went full-on ballistic after that and screamed at me how I could do this to her. I hung up and she called me a few seconds after, apologizing and agreeing to pay me for my help. She now has 2 months of intense memorizing with her ex if she wants to graduate. TLDR, my GF cheated on me, so I fed her fake chemistry information and almost made her fail chemistry. Now she's paying me to tutor her. Edit, now she has to study for those 2 months, and when the regular end of the school year comes she has to complete a series of exams, think 4 to 8, covering the most important topics from this year. If she passes all of them she will pass chemistry. Update, wow, I really didn't expect this post to blow up whatsoever. Thanks you all Redditors for your support and contributions. Special mentions go out to r/Redditor and Ask Goblin for featuring my stories in their YouTube videos. After 4 weeks of preparing, Caroline has actually learned a lot. She's even broken off contact with that guy, apologized and taken me out to dinner a few times to show her gratitude for still helping her. I hope she was actually able to realize what mistakes she committed in the past and won't do the same again. She was able to take her first exam today in the morning and is quite confident about it. Her next 5 will be spread along the next 2 final weeks. She will find out if this extra work is enough latest on the 23rd of June. I keep you guys update on further details and events that are relevant to this story. Once again, thank you all for your support. Update. So firstly, I apologize to all of you for this late update, but I was quite busy with collage applications, moving etc. It's been a long way for Caroline, but she's made it and completed all criteria required to graduate. She's also gotten into quite a good university, and she's learned a lot, not just chemistry, but she's actually gotten a much better work ethic and motivation to do stuff she doesn't enjoy. In the meantime, I've moved on and am with someone new. We're still friends but set clear boundaries as to not repeat history once again. I'm very happy the way things are as I've gotten into my first choice medical college. I've already moved out about 2 weeks ago and I'm living in the same city as before, because it's a major European city and has great universities. Caroline's college is located in a different country and she's moving tomorrow. We've met today to say goodbye, but we plan to keep in contact, as mentioned before, only as friends. Thank you for listening to Campfire TTS. Please like, comment, and subscribe.